Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you guys. We're back. It's Power Rankings Tuesday, just the LCS and the LEC over the weekend as Korea and China are still on their breaks. But hey, there was plenty to talk about, plenty of action from the weekend, plenty of changes to the Power Rankings in North America. It's looking like old EU where everybody's beating everybody.
It was a wacky and wild week number 2 for the LCS. And look, I think everybody had to know that this was going to happen in week 2, that things were going to get shaken up. You were going to have, what you had come to as a conclusion from week number 1 would be changing. Obviously, that always happens. And even preparing for some of the, things that you can't be prepared for happening in week number 2. I'm still pretty surprised with exactly the way things played out.
We start with the Titanic showdown at the summit that is the bottom of the LCS standings. We had the head-to-head CLG versus Golden Guardians back-to-back weeks. CLG playing for 10th place because you had it in week 1 against TSM. Loser was going to come in at the bottom, but CLG, Broxus visa gets approved and they say, hey, Broxa, we got you with the first dub of the season.
Hey, that's that motivation for the CLG squad getting Broxa to join them. And if they can show this type of form, maybe we're going to have to look for a new contender for a battle for 10th place every week, because what we saw from them in this matchup against, the Golden Guardians, who are residing in our 10th spot, was more than enough to show the faintest glimmers of hope for the CLG line.
Still pretty faint. You can look directly at this light. It's not going to hurt your eyes.
Yeah, and not very warm either.
And, I mean, Golden Guardians, we can only... For so long, we've been like, the wins aren't there, but you see it on the Rift. I can't keep saying that for you guys. Unfortunately, Niles, he still has potential, but he's still developing. This roster, maybe the lock-in tournament was further advanced than we actually thought. It's going to take some time for these young guys to get used to the LCS stage.
Yeah, what I'm seeing with the Golden Guardians at the very least, it kind of seems like they're trying to take those 2 steps, right? Trying to take those 2 steps up the stairs, but they're just not long enough of a reach to get to that one, and then they're slipping and then falling down a couple of stairs. Not the best look for the Golden Guardians. Yes, early. Yes, learning phases. Yes, we knew that this was going to be more or less the trajectory for this squad. I still think the actual performances and with accounting for them to be some growth and some mistakes to still happen, there's room for improvement absolutely with this Golden Guardians lineup.
8 and 7, a couple of 2 and 4 squads ahead of them. We have Immortals sliding down. They're still basically just riding that Team Liquid win in week 1 as like that's what we did this season. They'll probably be riding that for a long time. A spot ahead of them is FlyQuest, and I want to touch on them because at 2 and 4, people might be saying, oh my God, Licorice, what the hell are you doing? How'd you get over why'd you go to FlyQuest? This team's terrible, but pump the brakes, guys. The schedule so far for FlyQuest has been insane. Their losses are to 100 Thieves, Cloud9, Team Liquid, and Evil Geniuses. They've already played all of them. Their next 3 matches, Dignitas, Golden Guardians, and Immortals. So there's a good chance FlyQuest is flying up next week.
Right, and this is important to remember that this is not the FlyQuest of last year, right? Where you had a more or less still, kind of outside perspective, but still, an established lineup put together.
Fully revamped.
Full on, exactly. New situation with this lineup, even with someone like Licorice on the squad, need to change the expectations for the FlyQuest organization and what you have. As you said, the schedule in the next couple of days does line up better, but you need to be, again, with that said, still need to actually perform and get the dubs in the bank.
Yeah, and in these games against the top teams in the league, they've had moments, they've been competitive for a little bit, but it always ends up being a somewhat convincing win on the other side, especially at least that Cloud9 match. But FlyQuest, even though they're 7, I think they're going to still be a playoff team and be flying higher. It's just give them a bit of time. We're still only week 2, which is a third of the season, by the way, because there's only 6 in spring. Then we get to the most polarizing team on this entire list, Evil Geniuses. I can't believe you can see a team go from the game against Cloud9 that was a dominant win in their favor. Jizuke's playing Rise, going toe-to-toe against Perks with insane CS numbers. And then you get that very same team play the game that they did against Dignitas.
Unfortunately, I think that's the world we're going to have to live in with the Evil Geniuses and with this roster, the players that are on it. What we've seen from them in the past, what you know with this team, and even counting on, hopefully with Peter Dunn and the coaching staff putting, some better performances moving forward. Yeah, you're going to see this level of unpredictability. And unfortunately, this time, the negative side of that unpredictability for the Evil Geniuses, and specifically, I want to highlight Jizuke's performances. He is someone that can't have that level of difference in his performances for the Evil Geniuses. If they're going to be a top-level successful team in North America, they need him to be at a peak carry performance level.
And they need a lot of people playing at a better level than they did at Dignitas. Obviously, Svenskeren and Jizuke are the two key guys. Definitely's actually been relatively consistent, but that's just not up to par for what we saw against Dig. And if you're having that insane fluctuation from game to game within the same week, it's pretty volatile. It's going to be issue, especially when these best of fives roll around. So EG slides just outside of the top 10. We move to the top 5, excuse me. We move to that top 5 where team we just talked about, Dignitas, one of the absolute surprises, maybe the biggest surprise early on in this split, sitting pretty at 4-2. And again, we're going to pump the brakes here because much like FlyQuest, Dignitas is the complete opposite when it comes to scheduling. You look at their 4 wins that they've had so far, and you're talking about CLG, EG, okay, Immortals, and Golden Guardians. Those are the 4 teams that they've beat.
Right. So certainly not the strength of schedule, and at least the results that at least the results are there, right? Even with the strength of schedule not being exactly the stiffest test to go up against for the Dignitas squad.
But you can't punish them. They beat the teams that have been laid out in front of them.
Exactly. And what you've seen, how they've beaten these teams and how they performed, my man, it is Dardoch in the jungle, and it's that freedom of allowing him to play these type of champions, play some carries, play some different type of looks than what is the quote-unquote meta right now for junglers. And what they've done is not only pick that jungler, but then tailor the rest of their composition around that pick and helping it be the focal point, helping it be, assisted and unchained enough to do the damage that it's doing against the rest of these squads in the LCS. And that's something that, we haven't really seen. Any of these times that Dardoch has been on a team or, had a different opportunity, we haven't seen him quite been given the full support in the sense of everybody going in on this idea of him playing that style in the jungle, being that person, being that Dardoch that we've seen him be. Dignitas seems like that is their strategy, to make him that focus point for them. And it has absolutely paid off.
6 games, 6 different champions. Let me just list them off for you, what this guy's played so far. Udyr, okay, yeah, that's fine, perfectly meta. Mundo, Rengar, Hecarim, Kindred, and Kayn. I mean, at least half of those, nobody's picking in the jungle right now.
And nobody will be picking it for the rest of the season. I'll say the whole season, let alone the whole year. I think you can absolutely bank on those one with some unique picks coming across from Dardoch. But you said it, some of these type of champions, the recent example, the Kayn, that type of performance, that type of champion doesn't succeed in competitive play without the rest of the squad drafting around it and understanding how to best support it and how this is going to play. Really think that is an extra advantage, an X factor that Dignitas brings to the table. Yes, if you've got a response, able to shut down Dardoch, get, anything in that type of nature, absolutely, you can see this Dignitas team crumble and their game plan fall apart. But right now, nobody has been able to do that throughout 2 weeks.
We get to the top 4 now. Dig climbed up 3 spots, by the way, but it wasn't the biggest climb of the week because we got to talk about Team Solo Mid. We were drowning them. They were dead in the water last week, Mark, and credit to them. Absolutely incredible bounce back. 3-0, super clean wins against Team Liquid, most impressive win of the weekend, and Immortals to close things out. We're not putting them in the top 3 yet because of how bad week 1 was, and bringing the lock in as well. Right now, this is a fluke. Week 2 is, an outside an outsider compared to the full season for TSM. You need a couple of weeks for them to crack top 3, but from 9th to 4th is already an insane climb.
Yeah, and I'm going to join in on the fluke situation, but I want people to understand that the fluke here is that this is the perfection. This is exactly what we talked about when people said what TSM might be trying to do, what they're trying to see in their lineup and signing these players. This was the idea, to have, Huni making some of these clutch plays in the team fights, but, again, providing, more or less a steadier type of role in that top side, which compared to last week was a lot more steady, but I don't know how it's an easy improvement to make. Spica in the jungle, her playing a lot better than you saw from him last week, a lot more proactive. Power of Evil looking like the top tier mid laner that he was last year. Power of Evil delivering strong carry performances. And then I want to spend some time in the bot lane because, again, everyone's been very critical of this, let alone the ADC, but as the whole bot lane as a duo, especially with the price paid to bring Sword Art over to North America. As a duo in lane and specifically Lost stepped up his performance this week. And then great. Outside as a whole team game, Sword Art seemed to be much more on the same page as everybody. And I think that belongs with some credit due to the coaching staff, to Bjergsen and the rest of the staff that we were hard on last week and some of the errors that have come through. A nice change here with the Pantheon. And I know critically, a lot of people will look at the Pantheon and say, not the best pick. Sure. If you want to look at it in that sense, but if you want to talk about what happens when you pick Pantheon for your team, how everybody realizes it's a Pantheon. He does one thing. He fights. He goes in. He stuns. That's Pantheon. You got to be there to support him, to make sure that it happens. Everybody else on the same page. That's what I loved about the Pantheon pick coming through for this TSM squad. You know that Sword Art is able to play a pretty darn aggressive and good LPL style Pantheon.
It's more we're seeing that in the jungle. It hasn't been a pick support very often for the last couple of months.
But it takes a couple of nerfs, gets slotted back into that rotation for someone in the support role to pick them through the draft. And as I said, it's not about the actual champion itself, but it's about how your teammates realize they have to play and support around this identity and play style of the champion. That I loved that change for TSM.
Great week for Huni as well. Looked good on the Gnar, especially in some of those games, him and PoE. But really across the board, you can talk about everyone taking a full 10 steps forward from week 1. But again, 1 week.
Yeah, the question is replicating this, right, to the next week. And I tell you what, I don't think so. I don't think so. Absolutely don't think so.
It's the opposite here for number 3 on the list, because how can Team Liquid be ahead of TSM? They had the head-to-head matchup. TSM came away with a convincing win. Team Liquid also dropped another game this week. They have a worse record overall. How can you put them ahead? It's the same thing where it's a fluke this week, but for me, it's a fluke that Team Liquid looks so bad. If you're counting in lock-in, which we are for all these rankings that we're talking about, and how they looked in week 1, I'm not panicking. I'm not convinced that this is the Team Liquid we're going to see for the spring split. They only had 3 losses throughout the entire lock-in tournament. They already matched that in week 2 of spring.
Not impressed with the effort from Team Liquid. Not impressed, especially with the drafts, pick and bans, everything that was coming through. That whole package for Team Liquid was very poor and very unexpected for this week. What you saw. As far as the performances, actual players that we're going to have to examine here and go after, hey, I can't be putting any type of kitty gloves on here for this one. Got to go after your boy, Big Benson in the mid lane. Jensen not performing to the superstar level. We were just talking about Power of Evil, right? Stepping up, delivering those elite tier mid lane performances that that he's been able to deliver while he was in those conversations, even back on FlyQuest. Jensen was always in that conversation, and especially with Bjergsen stepping down, there was a lot of talk about him being the absolute king of the mid laners in North America until your boy Perks entered a bit of that conversation. Still, Jensen needs to be able to play and perform in that tier of those type of elite level players. This past weekend was not that whatsoever.
And even the bot lane, Tactical and Core JJ, they're losing 2v2s. You never see them losing 2v2s. Santorin seemed a little invisible in the jungle. But again, it's 1 week. It's a fluke for TSM to be so good. Feel like it's a fluke for Team Liquid to be so bad this week. That's why they're hanging on by a thread to that top 3 in this week's rankings. Top 2, No doubt. You had to put Cloud9 and 100 Thieves. They faced off. They had the head-to-head. That's why C9 comes out on top, despite the tough loss. Two evil geniuses. But this was a great match between them. It looked like Cloud9 was going to run away with it, and then 100 Thieves got back into it. FBI picked up the triple kill on the Kaisa. Both of these teams you should be excited about if you're a fan of North American League of Legends.
I'm extremely excited for the rematch of these squads eventually when we get it. That's the really important thing for me when you get to see that match again, because I'm expecting on improvement from both sides. And the question is going to be which one is more valuable, right? We're talking about the improvement of the 4 members of this squad with 100 Thieves. You know, whether you're talking about the 4 Golden Guardian members that have joined in and them improving their own individual performance, or if we're talking about them improving their synergy as a whole team, and then you're adding in Someday into that equation as well about what they're able to do. And then you add in the Cloud9 angle. You look on that side and you say, how well can this team adapt? How well can they continue to improve upon themselves? And how well specifically can someone like Fudge improve his performance, his reliability in that top side is going to be the key factor, because that is going to be the test that is measured against the rest of the improvement for the 100 Thieves. Because I tell you what, in the first match against Someday, absolutely in Someday's favor. And that's what you would expect it to be.
Sure.
But I want to see some progress. I want to see something change the next time they match up against one another, specifically in that topside matchup, because I'm expecting the rest of the Golden Guardians to improve their, the Golden Guardians members, former Golden Guardian members of 100 Thieves, to improve their performance and stack up better against the rest of Cloud9.
And real quick, all the champion picks out of Dardoch have been really fun, but your boy Blabber's playing Lethality Rek'Sai and like getting double-digit kills. So,
hey, and he's eating all those jungle bands too. So that's another level.
That's a crazy one. 5 full bands, and the guy still comes in and styles on you. Oh, okay.
Oh, that's the type of thing that you do to Chovy, you do to Showmaker, you do to Rookie. Now you're doing it to Blabber, and Blabber's coming through, making it pay off in the LCS.
No doubt, Cloud9 and 100 Thieves, top 2 after week 2 in the LCS. That's it today, though, for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you guys. Thanks for hanging. Catch you on the flippity flip.